Hi, everybody. Welcome to Creation Myths. I am Dr. Dan, as I've come to be known on the internet. The channel is Creation Myths, and we talk about really bad creationist science here. And I know that's redundant, but I say it every time anyway. And with me tonight, I am delighted to have my friend Dapper Dino. And we are here tonight to talk about young Earth creationists and vaccines and what happens when you teach your audience to be anti-science. Dapper, welcome. Tell everybody about yourself, for those of you who don't know you for whatever reason.
Well, for the people who might not know me, which I suspect isn't too many people here, but I'm Dapper Dino. I have a channel called Dapper Dino. It's the brown Dapper Dino, not the green one. So if you're looking for me, you check to see if it's brown, not green. There too. I did not know that originally. But yeah, so it's mostly creationist sort of debunking stuff, but I do a few other things too. There's some spirit science debunks on there. There's just some straight up, here's some science cool stuff there. Dan and I did some claims about Islamic miracles and flies. That was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little variety, but it kind of centers around, hey, look, here's something really stupid that isn't true. Let's fix it.
I want to recommend everybody to Dapper's channel if you are generally inclined to appreciate a good pseudoscience debunking is what you're going to find there. And I also, in contrast to how I treat creationists, which is like I'm going to pretend these are serious scientific ideas and look at them that way, I think Dapper has the correct approach to dealing with creationists, particularly young Earth creationists, which is to make fun of them on a weekly basis. Because, you know, it's not serious ideas. It's not serious scientific ideas. It's propaganda aimed at their specific audience. And the Kent with Bent and the I want to make sure I get the names right because I want to have them in the right order. So it's Kent with Bent, Eric with Erica, and Matt with Maddie, right? Are the three series?
Yep. It always goes with the creationist first and then my guest second.
Creationist and then guest. So it's Kent with Bent. Yeah, it's so those are wonderful. And just are the exact right approach of like, this is not serious. This is something to laugh at.
It's why we have a drinking game made out of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tonight, we are here to look at the intersection of young Earth creationism and anti-vaxxers, which is, I won't say the Venn diagram is a circle, but it's almost a circle with two crescent moons on, one on each side, right? It's close.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and say I think the anti-vax circle is actually larger than the creationist circle, and this creationist circle is almost entirely inside.
Yeah, it's definitely like that. I think that's a fair representation. And so what was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Recently, I did a video looking at basically the culpability that young Earth creationists have when it comes to the prominence of specifically anti-vaxxers with the COVID vaccine, right? And how if you look at what people like James Tour are doing, so James Tour is a chemist who is a very prominent young Earth creationist, and he's got a whole YouTube thing going on. He did a couple videos on COVID and vaccines, and specifically one on debunking COVID conspiracy theories. And then CMI, Creation Ministries International, to their credit, it's a young Earth creationist organization, but they have been outspoken in their kind of advocacy for promoting COVID vaccination. The problem is that the credit stops right there because their audience is full of anti-vaxxers, and yeah, obviously their audience is going to be full of anti-vaxxers because they've been teaching their audience to be anti-science for decades. So this is a follow-up to that, where I went through some Facebook comments and some YouTube comment threads looking at the creationists saying, hey, like, this is legit, you should get vaccinated, and their audience going, what do you mean? They're scientists, they're all liars, here's the real facts, right? Come on, guys. So we're going to look through a thread on Creation Ministries International's Facebook page tonight, where they we'll start right at the top, and it's I'll pull it up in a second, but it's promoting about an hour-long video called "The Case for COVID Vaccines." And so CMI, it was one of their affiliates, Dr. Jonathan Sarfati, young Earth creationist, appeared on this interview show to promote
one
COVID
of my favorite
vaccinations.
guys.
Yeah, I mean, got a lot of problems with Sarfati, right? He's, whew, man.
Yeah, although I will say he did fix the article that had me identified as the other Dapper Dino. So, like we've been saying, credit where credit is due. When that he was alerted to that fact, he fixed it pretty quickly. So, thanks, Dr. Sarfati, for doing that.
By the way, we're 5 minutes in, and I just had to block our first anti-vaxxer. So that's fun. So just FYI for everybody, if you're going to come on this channel and you are going to be an anti-vaxxer in the comments, then you will not be asked to leave. You will be made to leave, because lots of other channels have very permissive policies with, tolerating misinformation in their comments. This channel, Creation Myths, right here, does not. So if you come here and you're going to be in the chat, I have the live chat going right next to me here. If you're going to be coming in here promoting anti-vax conspiracy theories or anything, or if you're going to play the "I'm just asking questions" game, then I'm going to ban you from the channel, because I have a zero tolerance policy for anti-vaxxers. That's just how it is. So take it or leave it, everybody. You've had your warning. And you will be shown the door if you are throwing misinformation around on this channel. That's just how it goes. Tough luck, everybody. And we already caught one, which is a record. We've never caught someone within 6 minutes of a stream starting.
It's really fast.
We already caught one.
Like
moths to a flame.
As we've mentioned, though, the anti-vaxxers are also helping get the proportion of people vaccinated up. It's just that, pro-vaccine people are working on the numerator in that fraction. They're working on the denominator. Get that denominator lower, the fraction goes to a higher level.
I just want to appreciate this. PZ Myers, welcome.
Welcome.
It would be tricky to have no creationists. But I do invite creationists on from time to time. But the line in the chat for creationists is if you are just blatantly lying about what other people have said, then you get shown the door. And name calling, you get shown the door. I have a ban list a mile long, because this channel has very strict moderation policies. And you know what that leads to? It leads to chat sections that are not cesspools, because a lot of people that are jerks on YouTube are not welcome here, so they don't comment here. That's how it works. So as everyone might notice, this is not one of my, I have a specific set of things we're going to talk about tonight stream. This is hey Dapper, let's talk about science and communication and anti-vaxxers and young earthers kind of
very
thing.
Impromptu.
So this is just, I wanted to do this actually the other day when this stream was brought to my attention, but I'm at the beginning of a semester and stuff is busy. So I haven't had time to do this. So I'm going to pull up this Facebook page right here. And so let me just share this thing, and we are gonna, let's see, it is this one. And so here is the thread from CMI. As you can see, it's the case for COVID vaccines, which again, you know what? Props to CMI. I would really love it if they hadn't spent, the past however many decades. When was, Dapper, you would know better than me, when was the schism between AIG and CMI? Was that in the 80s?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know it was after 90s. It's got to be in the 80s or 90s, because they're after ICR was big, and that was in the 70s and early 80s. So it's got to be the 80s or 90s.
80s or 90s. So this was so CMI has been doing their thing for several decades, at least since the 90s, whenever the schism was between AIG and CMI. That's Answers in Genesis and Creation Ministries International. And if anyone in the audience is unfamiliar with the story of that schism, you should read up on that, because that was a whole thing. There were lots of accusations flying back and forth, including sorcery and all sorts of fun
demon possession, necrophilia. Demon
possession. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on in there. So okay, so let's go through this, because I'm going to skip right there because I commented. So I'm going to skip that. But I want to come back to that at the end, because that's where we see how CMI is actually reflecting on this. Spoiler, they're not. Right? There's zero consideration of any culpability for this mindset among their audience.
Well, young Earth creationists aren't known for the highest levels of self-awareness.
Really? They don't get a lot of introspection and no.
I actually heard the argument today that there is no heat problem with their flood model because we don't see evidence of heating in the record of the rocks. So therefore, that heat just didn't exist. And it's like, no, that's the exact opposite of the. Nope, that's not how any of that works.
Yeah, nope.
So yeah, very low self-awareness.
So now I do want to highlight, because we're going to go through this thread. And by the way, in the chat, if so I blew this up to the largest text size that will also increase the width. Beyond this point, the text gets bigger, but it narrows, relatively speaking, because the width will stay the same on screen. So if this is a good size, let me know. If this is too small, also let me know, because I could blow it up bigger. But we can do that. So I want to also, as we go through this, we're going to see people who are pro-vax. Good for them. We're going to see people who are anti-vax. Not cool. We're going to see more anti-vaxxers. So here we got Jim. Jim is saying we're all good, right? Jim is saying, anti-vaxxers are bad. Great. Good for Jim. Come down here. Steph is, they're an anti-vaxxer. They're saying, I haven't heard enough. This is the very typical, I just need more information. I'm not convinced, which is a whole genre of creationist arguments, as Dapper, I'm sure you're very familiar.
Yep. Yeah. I just want to see one transitional fossil. Okay, well, here are 40.
Yeah, right. Not good enough.
Yeah. And actually,
Nope.
One of the things I want to point out is that there's always the possibility that at some point, some medicine has some long-term side effect that we just haven't waited around long enough for. Like maybe aspirin, when you reach 130, is going to make all your teeth fall out. I don't know. But like at a certain point, you got to be like, okay, we've been testing it for a year. Chances are you're not going to have like a 12-year down the road side effect. That usually doesn't happen. So you just got to go with it at a certain point.
You just got it. Well, and it's not like we're, it's not like we did, the phase 1 trials with a couple hundred people. And now we're like, all right, everyone, let's do all 7 billion of us. Like, there were tens of thousands of people in these trials collectively. Just in the United States, between Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J, we're talking almost 100,000 people. That's to say nothing of the non-US trials, right? Because you also had the UK trials, the EU trials, like anywhere else in the world has gone through the same process by their standards. You're talking millions of people. Well, maybe not millions, but hundreds of thousands of people.
I mean, you've got a giant sample size and you've got proper blinding. So
yeah,
literally you could not ask for better research on this. It would essentially be impossible to find a more rigorous way to test the vaccines than what actually occurred. Now, it happened fast.
In fact, a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead. Go.
I was going to say it's going fast, but that's because what was cut out wasn't research. It was bureaucratic red tape. If anything, it's an argument for reforming the way the FDA goes through its approval process, and not an argument for this vaccine is bad.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually been a lot of talk recently about booster shots and do we need them in the FDA right now. There's a 2-day meeting going on. Day 1 was today on this topic. And a lot of people are basically saying, why are we dragging our feet on this? Like, we have enough data to draw a conclusion on this. Let's just roll it out and get it going. And there's a case to be made with that, and with the upcoming submissions for approval for was it 5 to 11-year-olds will be the next cohort, and then after that it'll be 6 month to 4-year-olds. And there's a case to be made of we know you have a process, but we have the data. Let's move this along. Also, this is a global emergency. This is not something that it's not like the measles vaccine where everyone got it as a kid. So in a given year, you only had so many people that were susceptible to it, right? As children were born, right? You weren't adding a whole bunch of new people. This is a global pandemic of a novel virus that all the unvaccinated, right?
The potentially infected is almost 8 billion guys. So,
Yeah, let's treat this like an emergency. Yeah.
Some of us who have already almost died of pneumonia and would prefer to not re-experience that.
Yeah. So here we have, but why go there? Please, this is the stay in your lane genre of comments. right?
Oh my goodness.
Please refrain from commenting on something that is not creationism. I love the unlawfully here, as though it's unlawful to be an advocate for like public health measures.
Yeah. Look, if I said to you specifically, hey, you need to go get this particular vaccine because of these medical reasons, then sure, maybe I'm giving you medical advice in an inappropriate area. But just being like, hey, go get a vaccine, don't eat poison. This is not practicing medicine without all
Right.
basis.
It's not. This is
basic
not
life advice.
Yeah, this is not practicing medicine. Saying, hi, everyone, we're in the middle of a pandemic, get vaccinated so you don't get the disease. That's not practicing medicine. That's just public health advocacy. Those are different things. Here, we also, similarly, I think as a ministry, you should stay out of it and let individuals decide. This is a twofer right here, right? We've got stay in your lane and individual choice in one comment. So this is a double backflip, right? This is where you get points for difficulty here.
Plus, they're not taking away your individual choice. They're making a recommendation. They literally cannot tie you down and go find you and give you a vaccine. Like, what do you think is happening?
Now we're getting into it, right, everybody? So here we go. There's no case for having the COVID jab, except it prevents most instances of getting COVID. Like, it prevents you from getting COVID. Like, it decreases your chances of getting COVID by like 90+%.
You can get the stats for
my dog is losing it over here. Stop.
So you can get the stats for each state from, I believe it's the CDC who's compiling it, but where you can see the proportion of new cases from vaccinated and unvaccinated and the proportions of hospitalizations vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And it's less than 10% vaccinated in each of those cases. We're currently on the tail end of wave, like 4 or 5, depending on where you are?
Wave 4. It's the fourth wave. For me, it's the fourth wave. I'm in the Northeast US. It's the fourth wave for me.
It's kind of the third wave here because, like, the waves were a little bit weird here in Arizona. But anyway, we're currently on the trail end of that. And it's almost entirely been unvaccinated people. If you go infections, hospitalizations, and death, it's single-digit percentages, and in most states, low single-digit percentages are vaccinated in terms of infections. 0.1% of infections of hospitalizations are vaccinated, and 0.000% of deaths are among the vaccinated, right? It's completely unvaccinated that are driving this wave of the pandemic from top to bottom. So if you scroll down, it's actually relevant right here because here you go. People who've had the jab are the ones spreading the virus. No, that's completely false. It's 95% plus of cases are among unvaccinated individuals. And there's the myth that vaccinated people with Delta spread it as readily as unvaccinated people. That is not true. That turned out to be not true. There were preliminary data that were reported before they had been double checked. They have since been verified with much larger data sets. And it turns out what you see is a lower viral load and, importantly, a shorter duration of infectivity for people who have been vaccinated. And that's including with the Delta variant. So, no, anti-vaxxers are not spreading most of the cases. Anti-vaxxers make up a small fraction of the cases, and as the vaccinated.
Sorry, vaccinated individuals make up a small fraction and are spreading less than that fraction subsequently.
Right. Is it impossible to catch COVID from a vaccinated person? No, it's not impossible. No. But it's just like it's such a smaller percentage that it's essentially something you can discount.
It's small enough. It's not driving the wave, right? This wave is being driven, 90-95% plus by anti-vaxxers. That are the people causing this wave.
Which also means that most of those breakthrough cases probably caused by the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So even the people with the vaccine so if everyone were vaccinated, we probably wouldn't even be, we'd get some breakthrough cases, but they would be vanishingly small. If the entire US were vaccinated, there basically wouldn't be a pandemic in the US.
That's exactly what I've been arguing this is right now the pandemic is optional. The U.S. has a vaccine supply sufficient to vaccinate everybody over 12 years of age. Probably by the end of October, we're going to have approval to vaccinate everybody over 5 years of age.
And
the pandemic is optional at this point, but we're deciding as a policy choice in the United States that we'd rather have the pandemic than have everyone get vaccinated. That is the policy choice that individuals and state governments are making all across this country. Like, that's just what it is. We are deciding that we'd rather do this some more than not. And here we are. So we have misinformation like this that is causing this. You've got someone claiming people just died from the COVID vaccination. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. If people were dropping dead from vaccinations, just in general, and from the various COVID vaccinations specifically, that would be international news. That would be groundbreaking news. Do you remember the absolute firestorm that happened when a handful of people got blood clots after getting the J&J vaccine, and it caused a whole thing?
Yeah.
And it was a type of blood clot that we know how to treat and identify and be like, oh, this is a problem. We can solve this problem, right? And they put out a thing and said, this is a thing to look out for, and there you go. That was national. Those were outliers. It was a tiny fraction. The rate of occurrence was not much higher than the background rate of occurrence. It was way lower than for tons of other medications like hormonal birth control. And yet it was a giant thing, right? If people were legitimately dropping dead from the COVID vaccination, then you would need a conspiracy of tens of millions to keep that under wraps.
Oh yeah. And I'll say, everyone I know who's on hormonal birth control has far worse side effects than what is typical for the vaccine.
Yeah.
So if you're on the pill, the vaccine won't be nearly as bad.
And then I want to shout out CMI here for actually providing some useful facts, because people are bringing up the myocarditis, which is inflammation around the heart. That was documented as a side effect of some of these vaccines. I forget which one, but one of the vaccines, that was a documented side effect in a few cases. What anti-vaxxers tend to leave out, and what CMI, their poor social media person who's dealing with this mess here, is that that's actually found in people with COVID at a way higher frequency than it is in people who are vaccinated. So no, it's not. That's not a good counter argument. It's way more dangerous to get COVID than the vaccination. Yeah.
It's like not wearing your seatbelt because you might chafe a little bit. Maybe, I guess. But also you might just not die when you get into a horrible car accident. So,
maybe just avoid the death.
In a situation where drunk drivers are just driving around all over the place because it's a pandemic of drunk driving.
Also, I know someone who got in a bad car accident, and when the airbag deployed, because of the way they were holding the steering wheel, they broke their arm.
Got to get rid of the airbags.
Got to get rid of those, right? No more airbags. No more decreasing the G-forces when you experience a sudden stop, because it could have...
Why would you want to extend the time during which you're decelerating? Just decelerate faster. It gets
just decelerate faster. It's fine. We saw this person broke their arm. I wouldn't want to experience that. Mm-mm. Yeah, it's the same argument for vaccines. Or I should say, it's the same argument against vaccines. It's let's take these outlier cases and say this is worse than the thing we're preventing. It's well, no, it's not. And all you need to do is look at the numbers.
Also,
and see it's not.
This next article headline weirds me out a little bit. Should Christians vaccinate? I don't understand why you need to feel the need to specify members of a certain people should vaccinate. So I think that's getting at did they use fetal cell lines in research side of things. I think that's I haven't read that article, but I know CMI and other organizations have been on that, and Sarfati and others have been no,
These vaccines are actually made a different way. They didn't
Yeah.
use fetal cell lines in their development. So Christians who are pro-life, which is to say in favor of controlling women's bodies, because that's what the pro-life movement is. It's about controlling people, not actually about having a principled position on abortion, because, you know, history is a thing and you can go back and read what people were saying in the 60s and 70s to see that. But people who pretend that this is about pro-life or about, you know, abortions, it's not a problem. Yeah, so that's just, yeah, fun fact for everyone. The pro-life movement actually emerged in the 60s and 70s out of the desire to maintain segregated schools in the United States. There's a fun fact for you. And that is well-documented history. So, gotta love politics in the United States. Okay, now we're getting into it because Eric here has posted an article from, I don't know, Dapper, I don't know if you're familiar with the Gateway Pundit, but if anyone isn't familiar with the Gateway Pundit,
Yeah.
Dapper, do you know who that, like, what that is? That is some...
I wouldn't exactly call it the most reliable option for your news source.
That is an understatement, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
That is, you know, it's basic. It's a right-wing propaganda website is what it is, right? It is just making stuff up, you know. And so what they wrote is proving the effectiveness of it's about ivermectin. It's about the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin. So that's what that is. So now we're into, no, let's use these alternative things. Now this was 3 days ago. So this person is actually behind the times because Dapper, have you heard the new thing? Because first it was hydroxychloroquine, and then it was ivermectin. And have you heard the new miracle cure now?
Well, I have heard someone advocating for turpentine, but I don't know if that's what you're going for.
No, the new one is gargling iodine.
Oh, I did hear about that.
Yeah, as a preventative.
Okay, so there are cases when it is medically advisable to up your iodine intake. But what you shouldn't do, and again, not medical advice, consult your physician. But I have very high confidence that your physician would agree with me. Do not just take some iodine that you bought at the chemical store or the grocery store or something and just gargle it.
Like, people are literally talking about gargling like betadine that you can get from the pharmacy.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
That stuff's used to disinfect things.
That's for disinfecting like wounds on your skin.
Yeah,
don't do that. Please.
Okay, so here's a couple reasons why iodine might be a thing that you need. Right, the big one is you have a deficiency. You don't want goiters. So have some extra iodized salt or get some iodine supplements.
Supplemental dietary iodine, not disinfectant iodine.
The only other one is if you're in a situation where there's been a radiological incident that has released radioactive iodine, which will be preferentially absorbed into your body if you don't saturate it with iodine, in which case, yes, take those iodine pills that your RadCon guy gave you. But guess what? Most people don't have a RadCon guy. You know why? Because that doesn't come up for most people. Because most people aren't in a situation where a nuclear RadCon event is going to happen.
Yeah, if you're hanging out in southern Belarus circa 1986, then you might want to take some iodine tablets just to be safe. Generally not something you need to worry about when it comes to radiological dangers.
And the thing is, there are harms to taking those pills. The only reason you would want them is to avoid the even greater harms from the radioactive iodine.
Radioactive iodine accumulating in your thyroid gland.
Right, because basically you're overdosing on iodine, which is not a good thing.
No.
It's just not quite as bad
as like being irradiated by the Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this one. So we get another one here in the genre of stay in your lane. It's a long one, but it's, you know, don't wade into topics like man-made climate change, blah, blah, blah. This has been tossed by the wayside. Look, this is because this is a long comment. This person isn't just like spouting off. This person like took time to write 3 short paragraphs, right? This is a good time to pause and think, you know, why are people putting in the effort to write this on a Young Earth Creationist Facebook page? right? Where they're saying they're not. What are they doing wrong here? They're saying get vaccinated.
Right. But
Why?
so it's the same thing with the climate change, right? So these are the same people who will do things like deny obvious examples of evolution when it's shoved in their face. They'll tell you that geologists, paleontologists, astrophysicists, astronomers, they're all lying to you because they would have to be, right? Because
Yeah,
most creationist arguments basically come down to, hey, all the professionals who spent decades of their life dedicated to this field basically just forgot to check their math, and everyone just went with it. That's the kind of conspiracy that you have to be at. So of course you're going to be a climate change denialist, especially when that aligns with your political views, and you're going to be an anti-vaxxer, especially when it aligns with your political views, because it wasn't always the case. Like before, I would say, before like 2015, there was a lot of diversity in anti-vax. There were a lot of left-wing anti-vaxxers.
there was a lot of left-wing anti-vaxxers. Right. Yeah.
But when a certain president decides to make not basically listening to science part of his platform as president, and then his followers do it, and they're already primed to disbelieve science anyway, it's kind of a perfect storm of people not buying medical science.
So it's where you end up with this kind of partisan assorting kind of mechanism going on, where people will kind of learn what their side's position is and then go from there. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Ezra Klein, but he has a fun rant on this that some podcast I heard him ranting on this one time. And he's talking about how prior to, as you say, 2015, prior to, for this example, it was prior to 2007, 2008. You had a lot of mixing between political parties in the United States across the right-left axis on questions that were only tangentially related to politics.
Right.
But following Obama's election, you had a lot of sorting because it became clear when the Democratic Party's president for nominee was a black man and then subsequently elected president, that the party that was in favor of measures to advance racial equality, that was the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party was the party against that, right? Just by virtue of being against Obama, right? You had people suddenly sorting along partisan lines on questions of I forget the year at the Academy Awards, but it was La La Land was like incorrectly announced as the Best Picture winner, and then Moonlight actually won Best Picture, and like you can actually poll that question of which one should have won, and that assorts along partisan lines, which
weird to me.
Previously had not been the case, right? And there's lots of research on this of like when you have political elites that signal certain things, that leads to a partisan sorting on that question. And with vaccines, or I guess with COVID more generally, with Trump basically denying that COVID was a problem for, the year of 2020, right? We all remember it's at 15 cases and soon it'll go to 0, right? And basically just spent the year presenting it wasn't an issue as hundreds of thousands of people died. That was the partisan signal. That was to say, okay, Republicans, you're going to believe this set of things. The problem is, like what CMI is doing with their anti-science stuff, Republican elites could not control the genie that they let out of the bottle. I know I'm mixing metaphors here between leopards and genies and, just go with it, right? But, so you start with COVID isn't that big a deal and it'll be gone soon. And then you kind of get into anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. And then you've got people gurgling iodine and taking agricultural anti-parasitic medicine, right? Like it's along these partisan sorting lines. So it's like you said, we used to have, prominent left-wing anti-vaxxers, but it's been sorted that either those people are not anti-vaxxers anymore or they're not left-wing anymore. We've sorted that out now because that's how things work when you have a two-party system.
That I would be interested to find out if there have been anti-vaxxers who were left-wing in, say, 2014, and now in 2020, they're like far-right types. That would be an interesting study to see if there's been a big shift there.
unrelated to that, in terms of anti-vaxxers, but a similar trajectory, I would also like to follow that trajectory for the new atheist movement, because you have a lot of the same things where the new atheists in the early aughts into like the 2010s were often quite far to the left. And then a bunch of them got like Nazi curious in the last 5-10 years. And it's the same kind of weird progression. And I would love to know how that happened. If anybody, by the way, I just want to throw this out there. If anybody has a book on that, I would read that book. I don't think it exists, but if anybody does, I would 100% read that book.
It would certainly be interesting because, yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's, boy, there's some people I knew in college and I don't know what happened. All right, let's continue on our parade through the misinformation here. So let's see. We've got Sarfati's material and creation science. See, this is a stay in your lane argument, right? We've got another one for stay in your lane, right? How can we trust him?
I do love the irony, though. This is not a subject on which he can speak as an authority. That's almost everything he does. When was the last? So Sarfati is what? He's a chemist, right?
I honestly don't know. I can't keep straight. If anyone in the chat knows what Sarfati is, I can't keep straight who's what, because they're all operating outside their field. I don't know who's what.
I have a book of his like 10 feet from me. I'm going to go get it and check because there's an author blurb. So
yeah, if you don't mind checking it, because I don't remember. And I just know there's a lot of
yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. And then when you get back, Dapper, we have some delicious irony in this next comment right here.
Awesome.
Oh man, this one, I just want to point this out for everybody. This is, oh boy. So this is Creation Ministries International. Creation Ministries International saying, you clearly gravitate to outsiders and ignore the clear evidence. CMI having the nerve to say you are ignoring the consensus and the weight of the evidence in your field, and you are instead more strongly considering fringe voices. That is not how you reach reasonable conclusions. Coming from Creation Ministries International.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Kettle.
Pot, meat, kettle. Like, that is their business model.
Sarfati received his PhD in physical chemistry from Victoria University in Wellington in 1995 on the topic of spectroscopy, especially vibrational. So you know what? If Sarfati has something to tell me about spectroscopy, like things like emission spectra and like, how you can use a spectrometer to determine what kinds of stuff is in a sample.
Authority.
I'm all ears. But you know what he actually talks about? He talks about things like, genetics, dinosaur morphology, and he gets it all wrong because, as Art Klassen would say, this is not a subject which he can speak as an authority. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, delicious irony. That one. Hang on, let me check my irony meter. I can't measure it. It's off the scales. It's I was going to make the joke from Chernobyl, but I forget the number. Not great, not terrible, but that's where my irony meter is right now. It's bad. All right, so let's see. We make no mention of what carries the bug or virus you need to travel, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you can still transmit it even if you wear it. So this is an anti-masker, right? You can still wear it even if or you can still transmit it even if you're taking the measures. Okay.
This is the good is the, or sorry, the perfect is the enemy of the good.
Right.
If it's not going to 100% stop all spread of everything, then why even bother? And it's like, well, because, over 90%.
Stop all car fatalities.
Right. Over 90% is a whole lot. And you holding out for 100% just means we're at 0.
Right. Yeah. Then we have, leaky vaccines. This is, again, the vaccines aren't perfect.
They never were.
Okay. And I'd like to reduce my chances by 95%. That's pretty good.
So, sorry. This is actually a pretty common thing in medicine, right? Every time a doctor is going to recommend a medical procedure or perform one, or a medicine or anything, right? There are always risks. Every single intervention from a medical professional has a risk associated with it. There is not one that cannot go wrong. What you have to do is say, okay, is the risk of doing this lower than the risk of not? And when the answer is yes, you do the intervention. Will there be times where there's an adverse reaction, where someone dies on the operating table, where they catch the disease anyway? Sorry. Yes, there will. but it's a numbers game. And the thing is, it's really hard for humans to think in terms of numbers because humans like stories. And the story about Nicki Minaj's cousin's balls is more effective than someone saying, "Hey, look at all this data."
I want to thank you for putting that phrase into the public record on this channel. So this is where we do real science and take creation science seriously. And now the phrase Nicki Minaj's cousin's balls is now.
Oh wait, no, I think those are cousin's friend's balls.
Whatever it is, this is now part of the public record for this channel. So thanks for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. There didn't seem to be enough celebrity gossip on here.
Thanks. I just want to point out for everybody a couple things. I'm gonna highlight this, not because it's particularly noteworthy, but just so I don't lose my place, because I forgot to mention at the top that this phrase, as of like when I opened this, like an hour ago, 680 comments, and watch the scroll bar. Look how not far we are down this thread. And we're not even going into sub threads. We're not doing that. We're just looking at the top level comments. So we have, it's difficult to navigate. So here's an astute observation. It seems as though you're expected to have certain views based on your political leanings. Yeah, that is the case.
It does seem like that.
Definitely the case. Turns out that's a bad way to adjudicate scientific disagreements. You should probably not use that as a way to figure out what's the right thing to do scientifically.
And I'm going to point out, CMI is actually coming out of, they are the ones who are saying, oh, hey, we're not going to just take the political view that we're expected to have. We're going to do the responsible thing and say, oh, hey, we recognize that you guys might be politically adverse to this solution to this problem, but it is kind of the only solution.
Yeah. So I want to just pause for a second and say, Silver Harlow for $5. Thank you. I appreciate your generosity. Spent the last 3 weeks watching your entire back catalog. Good.
Wow.
Thank you. After watching me on Dapper a little while ago. So thank you. I appreciate that. This next one is a genre of comment we haven't seen yet. It's the I don't care about granny comment. It's 98.5% survivable, or actually it's 99.9%. It's the most people survive, so whatever version. Now, there's two things about this I want to point out. One is when we wrap this up at some point, we'll go back up to the top and we'll look at what CMI said about evolutionists who are saying, oh, just let, natural selection figure it out. So one, this person is doing exactly what CMI accuses evolutionists of doing, right?
Right.
The second thing is that this is the I don't care about grandma argument, because those 1%, 1.5%, whatever that case fatality rate is, those are not evenly distributed. It's not everyone walking around with a 100-sided die in their pocket and then they roll it hoping the red side doesn't come up, right? It's most people who are young and healthy are much less likely than 1% to actually die from the virus. But if you're old, if you're immunocompromised, if you have a history of respiratory problems, you're way more likely than 1%. And what this argument is saying is, I don't care about, the 85-year-old grandma in the nursing home. I don't care about the person who has had lung cancer. I don't care about, XYZ. Those people don't matter. That's what this argument is saying.
And plus, it's also, I think it's an example of, even if you ignore the fact that this person just doesn't care about people who are more susceptible than they are. Okay, I've got two 10-sided dice here. Would you take this as an option? Hey, guess what? You have to roll these, and if they both come up 0, which is a 10 on these, I get to shoot you.
Sucks for you.
Okay. Now, here's the other option. Someone else is saying, hey, take this quick jab and feel kind of crappy for a couple days. And then what you have to do is you have to, if you roll 2 zeros 3 times in a row, then I'll shoot you. That's your choice right now. Yeah. You are in that exact same situation. There's a guy who's threatening you. Roll these dice. Oh, hey, good job. You got a 95. That's pretty close, but and you're just taking that bet. Do you want to take that bet? Why would you want to take that bet? No one in their right mind would just go around doing things that had a 2.5% chance of killing them.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of people are doing that right now. Like, it's a lot of people are doing that, and that's ignoring what our mutual friend Covert Cuttlefish is saying here, to say nothing of morbidity. Yeah, because lots of people survive, but there are long-term effects. I forget who it is because I don't follow professional football, because now I can't even find the comment. I gotta take that down, but I can't even find the comment. Yeah, there it is. I don't follow the NFL anymore because the NFL is awful and I think indefensible. But I was reading a story that some quarterback for I think it was a quarterback for one of the teams is basically out indefinitely because they got COVID last year and it left them with a heart problem. And like, this is not someone with comorbidities. This is not someone who's old. This is not someone who's immunocompromised. This is a world-class athlete.
Yeah.
Who, like, this has now potentially ended their career.
People
Because
long-term heart disease, lung disease, permanent, as far as we can tell, anosmia. Do you want to just never be able to taste or smell again?
Neurological condition, like, there's a ton of long-term effects. And you know what? We've now had people who are vaccinated. I'm coming up because I was in the Pfizer trial. I'm coming up on 11 months since I was vaccinated last fall. So we've got now an enormous data set of people who have been vaccinated for almost a year. At some point, you have to say, like, how long in the future are these mystery long-term side effects from vaccination supposed to manifest, right? Meanwhile, we have documented cases of lots of people who are having long-term side effects from COVID, even when they don't experience a severe acute illness from it. And, like, just weighing the odds of that, like you said, do you want to roll the 2 dice or the 6, right? What chances do you want to take there? It's ridiculous, but here we are. And you've got people making this argument. Here's another new argument, another new genre of argument here. God's got this.
God always steps in to prevent plagues. All through history, the one thing you can count on is anytime a plague starts up, God shows up and just poof, there it's gone. Believe in miracles all you want, but where in history has that been the case? Was it the case during the reign of Justinian for the Justinian plague? No. Was it the case during the Black Death? No. Was it the case even for the first SARS disease? No. Spanish flu? No. Typhus or typhoid fever? Nope. Never been the case.
Hey, Dapper, what has eradicated diseases?
Everyone dying and vaccines. Those are the two.
What if we make the vaccines optional? What if we say, like, hey, whatever, take it or leave it? Has that historically worked to eradicate diseases?
No. There's only been a very small number of diseases that have ever been eradicated, and all of them were because of mandatory vaccinations.
Yeah, it's actually one, I think. Smallpox is the only one I can think of. Polio, we're this close with polio, but we're not there yet. But with smallpox, it's one. And for anybody who says, we've never made everyone get a vaccine before, if you are over the age of 40 or so, I want to direct you to that scar on your left shoulder. That scar that you have from the smallpox vaccine, and it's going to be a lot of people under 40, depending on where in the world, and if you've been in the U.S. military if you've been in the U.S. military, you're going to have that scar. So the reason we have that scar is twofold. One is that the smallpox, it infects the skin, and the vaccine is a live attenuated vaccine, so it does better if you perforate the skin and it infects that tissue. That's how you generate the most robust immunity. But the other thing is the scar is very distinctive, and you can go anywhere in the world and look around and just check everyone's shoulder and know if they've been vaccinated or not. So not only did we force everyone to get vaccinated, we forced everyone to have a scar to know if you got vaccinated. So there's no more, excuse me, are you vaccinated? That's private medical information. It's, excuse me, show me your shoulder. I'm not asking, I'm making you. That was the situation with the smallpox vaccine. Stuff about, like, you can't make me, like, we literally, it's not good.
Yeah.
But we literally kidnapped people to eradicate smallpox. I
don't think COVID-19 is going to be eradicated. I think that ship has, I think, sailed.
That's a whole other stream. I can talk about that for hours, but that's a whole other stream on viral evolution. And I want to revisit that topic at some point in the near future. But for now, let's keep going through these comments. But I do want to say on this God's got this comment, this is just straight up like, who do you think sent the boat to rescue you from the flood? Right? It's that.
Yeah.
As
I want to point out about the plague of Justinian, which killed a ridiculous proportion of the Eastern Roman Empire. Yeah, there was a whole lot of praying because at the time, the entire empire was officially their official religion was Christianity. And the same thing is true for the Black Plague in Western Europe and things, which killed also a ridiculously high portion of Western Europe. It didn't work, guys. Okay, maybe you can say it would have been even worse without God helping. Sure, I don't know. I can't prove otherwise.
It didn't solve the problem.
It did not solve the problem at all. You still had not a roll of the dice of 100. We're talking you get a D6, roll a 1, you're dead.
Yeah, if you get and in parts of Europe it was worse than that. It was it was here's a triangle, spin it. One of the sides is red. Good luck. Right? Mm-hmm. It was that bad in some cities. Whew. Okay, so let's see here. We've got false ideology. This is the first I'm out of here comment. I will be removing myself. Goodbye. You get a bunch of these on YouTube when CMI posts these. You got a bunch of these on James Torr's videos of I'm unsubscribing.
That's such strong boomer energy. It's just I have to announce my exit from this group, and no one cares, dude. No one. The only time you should ever make an exit post is if you're oh, hey guys, I have to step away for a while because I'm really busy, but I've really had fun. I hope the best for all of you. Bye. That is the only kind of exit post anyone ever cares about.
This is, I don't know if you know the joke about, it's a Mitch Hedberg joke. Mitch Hedberg, great stand-up comedian. If people aren't familiar with it, check him out on YouTube. It's just an incredible stand-up comedian. Gone too soon. He's got the joke, Dapper. Are you familiar with Mitch Hedberg?
Yeah.
He's got the joke about the worst place to have a fight with your spouse is camping because you can't slam a tent flap. And that's what this is. We're slamming a tent flap is what we're doing here, right? You can't. He's just zip it up real fast. That's what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see. Okay, we can long-term effects without actual. Okay, good. There we go.
David DB Numbers says in the chat, "I will be removing myself." Could be the anti-vaxxer slogan. That's dark, but awesome.
That is dark, but I'll allow it. Ooh,
yeah,
that's dark.
But it's not any darker than me saying that they're working on the numerator in terms of the proportion of the vaccinated.
Right. It's the pro-vaxxers are fixing the numerator and the anti-vaxxers are fixing the denominator. Yeah. It's boy. Okay. I've come to this one. This comment was a journey. I remember reading this when I first read through this thread, last week or whenever when they posted it. And I'm rather saddened by the quality of discussion on this thread. I've come to expect better from CMI. Oh man. Thought they were gonna. No.
I'm with you up until that second sentence.
Oh man. Darn. Political ploy. See, it's when everything is a conspiracy theory, as you said before, Dapper, what CMI promotes, because they're a young Earth organization. So in order for them to be correct, you need to have entire fields of science, not just all of biology, but all of physics and chemistry and geology and everything else, basically all of natural science, basically either every practitioner, every professional, everyone with a degree either has to be wrong or lying, right?
And not just wrong. For young Earth creationism to be wrong, it would be so blindingly obvious that the conclusions that science has actually reached are wrong that you couldn't honestly study this in the real world and come away with the conclusion that the Earth isn't young and there wasn't a flood. If it were true, if either of those things were true, you couldn't hide it from anyone doing the work.
So what we have here is someone going, accusing CMI of the conspiracy theory now. Now CMI is in on the con, right? They're now on board with all of those other scientists who are lying to you. CMI is now on board. That's what we've got right here. And then we've got the, here it is. This is the it'll change your DNA claim right here, right? mRNA vaccines. And this is actually a twofer. So again, degree of difficulty points for this comment because this is a vaccine. So it's what people will claim is that it's gene therapy, not a vaccine. It's not gene therapy. It can't modify your DNA. The mRNA doesn't even get into your nucleus, which is where your DNA is. So
I'll be honest,
it can't do that.
If there was an anti-COVID gene therapy, I would take that immediately.
I'm on it. I am with you on that one. But this is not that. This
No.
is a vaccine. It's not gene therapy. It doesn't change your DNA, right?
So the complaint here is this isn't something even better. Therefore, I don't want it because the thing that would be even better, I'm even more scared of.
Right. But
Thanks.
they go for the backflip, but they're also going to add a half twist to it because they also go, but also long-term studies. So we actually touched on this of like, how long do you want at this point? Because the studies were going on from very early in 2020. We're now approaching the end of 2021. So you've got people, I mean, I was in the phase 3 trial, so I'm coming up on a year. There are people that have been vaccinated against COVID for 18 months, 20 months at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
And
like,
it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we know what mRNA does chemically. We know what your own immune system does when it receives signals from things like COVID spike proteins, because that's what you're getting out of it.
That's what it is.
And there's none of the active ingredient left in your body after days, not weeks, not months, not years, days, maximum.
Hours.
So,
and,
for there to be a long-term side effect at this point would require some really weird stuff that would violate things like, the dose effect law in medicine, where the higher dose has a higher effect. We're getting into like, this isn't a homeopathic vaccine, guys. It's not going to get stronger the less of it there is.
Right. We get down here and we have aborted fetal cell lines, which is, we've addressed that already, but it's just tons of things. I don't know who Dr. White is, so we'll just.
I want to point out something about the aborted fetal cell lines.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say, just for the sake of this argument, yes, abortion is murder. It's inexcusable. Okay, sure. Other scientific progress has been made in morally aberrant ways, right? So, for instance, the U.S. currently has data about the progress of untreated syphilis because it intentionally infected black men with syphilis and watched them suffer. I don't want to throw the data out. I can't help those guys.
Terrible.
It's too late for them. It shouldn't have happened. We should never allow it to happen again. But it's fait accompli at this point. You don't need to throw the data out. It's okay. So, for instance, if an abortion happened, and let's say it is murder, okay, what we're now using is a cell line that's been immortalized. It's not going to be turning into a baby. And sure, if we accept the argument that it's murder, then yes, a murder occurred, and now we're benefiting from it. But we can't unmurder the thing, so what are you going to do?
Fortunately, abortion is not murder, and we don't have to worry about that.
Sure, I'm just saying, even if we accept the argument, it's still not a good reason to not take vaccines.
There we go.
Oh, 6 to, yeah.
Hi, anti-vaxxers. I know you can't comment because you've been banned, but I see you, and I appreciate you.
And thanks for the engagement. But yeah,
right,
I'm not actually making that argument. I'm just saying there is no version of the pro-life argument that actually makes sense. Yeah. Even if it did use the fetal stem cell line, even if abortion is murder, still, it's not a good argument.
I'll see your 5 years, and I want 10 years.
10. Oh, why not 100? Oh, is this a 40-year?
Yeah. God give it, God will. This is another one. You're seeing repeats in the themes here, right? It's I also, this is also getting at the natural immunity one, which is a fun one because that's the natural immunity argument is if I get COVID, I will fight it off and then I will have greater resistance to it subsequently than if I get vaccinated, which one that's not actually true. The study that claim is based on the recent study out of Israel, the sample size was pathetically small. The data for hospitalizations, they claimed an 8-to-1 ratio of past infections versus vaccinated. Dabber, you want to guess what the sample size for that was? That 8-to-1 ratio?
Okay. I'm going to go with 9.
It was 9. It was 9
okay.
People. Yeah, it was 9.
It's a weird ratio, and you were using it so specifically. I was like, yeah, 9 sounds like, yeah, no, you can't.
Yeah, you can't. It was 9 people. Also, fun fact, that study did not it was retrospective, so they didn't survey like subsequent infections in anybody. It was self-reported. Who do you think is more likely to get tested for COVID? Someone who has not been vaccinated or someone who has been vaccinated? Like, who's more likely to be like, maybe I should get tested?
Probably the responsible type people.
Probably the people that are getting vaccinated.
Right? Yeah, who are taking this seriously as an actual.
So that study is undercounting people, and you can't take it seriously. So that's where that claim comes from.
So it was self-reported.
It was a retrospective study over X number of months. Basically, people that either got
Okay.
vaccinated or had COVID, documented COVID, and then subsequently did they test positive for COVID.
Right.
But it wasn't like we're going to follow 1,000 people and test them every week. It was, it was like it was a self-reported thing. Yeah, it's voluntary, so it wasn't. No,
I'm not going to say that there's no point in a study like that, but like you cannot draw. The point of studies like that, right, is to lead you to a further actually well-constructed study that will actually give you good stats. Those are not the studies that you base conclusions on. They're the studies that you base other studies on. That's why they're done.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's the same reason that you do like case studies in medical journals. No one's drawing new treatment methodology from, case studies. You're saying, oh, hey, this is interesting. Let's investigate it with a real study with a big sample size, with proper blinding and whatnot. And I don't think that people know enough about how science works to know the difference. I think that's part of the problem. And CMI is definitely not helping, because when was the last time CMI said, hey, read this paper?
CMI, as we'll see, and I'm gonna cut this off in terms of going through the thread in just a few minutes, because we've been going Dapper for an hour already. And we could do this literally all night because, like I said, there's almost 700 comments in this thread.
I'm starting to regret not having vodka in my
I was going to say, I did warn you at the top.
You did.
So I do want to say, vaccines that have been recalled, none of these vaccines have been recalled.
No,
that's not true. They just haven't been recalled. That's just
not even the Johnson & Johnson was recalled. There was a temporary pause. Right.
And then they said, nope, it's actually fine. Keep going.
Yep.
Yeah. Here you go. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. If you had, that's an oldie but a goodie at this point. But if you had hydroxychloroquine on your bingo card, you can check that off. Congratulations.
Here's my non-medical advice for if you think hydroxychloroquine is going to help. Okay. Go get the vaccine. And then if you're still worried about it, go mix yourself a nice, tall gin and tonic and get a whole bunch of chloroquine that way.
There you go. So we've got vaccine injuries. We've got it's vaccine. So you got the gene therapy thing. How many publications have been made of vaccine long-term studies? So we've got people asking for long-term studies. There we go. We've got, hey, look at that. A top-level comment that's not an anti-vaxxer.
Oh, finally. Good job, Sam Schultz.
Yeah, that only took till halfway through. So go ahead, and then I'm gonna go back up because I think we've established kind of what's going on here.
It bothers me that it took that long to get to someone who's unambiguously in support. Yeah, out of 600, well, I guess we can't say 680 comments.
Whatever the top
those are
comments,
right, yeah. And I don't know how many of those there are. So
maybe
I'll retract the numerical thing.
Whatever. It's a lot.
That's just, my goodness.
Right, like it just this thread just keeps going and going and going. But this is poison injection. Like this is, it doesn't stop. So I want to go back up to the top here because I think people get the idea.
Aren't these the same kind of people who like to eat cyanide to cure cancer? Talking about poison injections.
Not optimal.
Yeah.
All right. So I need to. So with this, so I commented, and I said, look, I hope this leads to some introspection here, because you're teaching people to be anti-science conspiracy theorists. They turn around and believe the anti-science conspiracies. There's a causal relationship here, right? I think that's pretty clear. And there's now been, research on how basically, if you buy into one conspiracy theory, it kind of makes you more susceptible to all the other conspiracy theories, even when they're contradictory with each other.
That's really well documented too.
Yeah, it's not a controversial conclusion. If you believe one thing, then like you are more susceptible to misinformation and buying into these other wrong ideas. So I wrote this. They wrote. So I have to issue an old people Facebook mea culpa here because I messed up the thread structure. So they commented here. Their initial response to me was saying, "Here you go." Operational science. There's an oldie but a goodie, the operational versus historical science distinction. That's fake.
Yeah.
It's a fake distinction. That's not a real thing.
Well, here's something about science, right? Every experiment you ever did, you did it in the past. Who cares?
Yeah.
The whole point of science is that we don't assume that nature just operates at random at times other than now. And the way we test it is that we continuously base future predictions on past observations, and it keeps working out. So there is no reason to think that the laws of physics, basically, which if you're going to be reductionist, is everything comes down to, were different in the past. And if you're going to propose that they were, you need to actually have evidence of it, because everything we see as we move through time, because remember, we've got access to the past, present, and we'll have access to future events, which we can predict now, all seems to indicate that, yeah, physics doesn't really vary over time.
CMI teaches people to love real science and reject conspiratorial thinking.
Oh my God.
So if you were wondering if there was going to be any introspection and self-reflection here, there's your answer.
But your ilk...
Reject
Has anyone ever used the word ilk in anything other than a pejorative sense?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just love that we're gonna poison the well right off the bat.
We're just gonna start. Oh, don't worry. We're gonna go through the subthread because this was fun, and this subthread ended up being extremely illustrated.
In that case, I am going to go put some vodka in this glass.
This will take a few more minutes, so let's do that, and then I hope to be done in 10 to 15 minutes.
Well,
I don't want this stream to go all night, but we'll go up to the top of this thread here.
Okay. I've read some of this, so don't stop on my.
Yeah, right away. We're saying, push your atheistic worldview here. So now we go back up because, again, I broke the thread structure. It was my fault. I'm sorry. So now we go back up here. And because, I'm sarcastic. That's what I said. I said, yeah, it's us. Sorry. Okay. So we get some, if we're playing logical fallacy bingo here, we get some nice cherry picking of you could find quacks in any field that are going to say any stupid thing, right? So I don't know who this person is, but okay. But then the other fun thing is you've got people like Alfred Russel Wallace, opponent of smallpox vaccination. Okay, he's from the 1800s. I don't care. And I don't think many people are getting their public health information right now from a biologist who was prominent in the 1860s and 70s. So, last century, doesn't matter. Maybe take a minute. This is my point here with all of this, with this comment, with this video, is that young Earth creationist organizations, and I should say all creationist organizations, Discovery Institute is awful with this. They're like straight up anti-vaxxers. The Discovery Institute is the worst with this. I mean, you've got prominent DI guys like Douglas Axe that for months are basically like COVID truthers. I don't know if they still are. They probably are. But for months, they were just basically this is all fake. So I just want them to reflect on their role in this. So we have, let's see, I want to get down here. Oh, here we go. Hijacking of science for an atheopathic agenda, obfuscating operational and historical science. It's a twofer right there.
Is that even a real word?
Apparently it is.
Atheopathic is a real word, huh?
Sure, maybe. I'm
going to check.
I mean, maybe CMI made up the word, but all words are made up. So sure, why not?
Well, when I say, so I am a descriptivist, but when I say a real word, what I mean is that a word that other members
would
who are
recognize
of the speaking community will recognize and know what it means. So there's arthropathy, which is just joint disease, but atheopathy returns no results on Google.
Yeah. Now, okay, maybe they made up a word, new word. All right. Well, now they and their social media person and the two of us get it. So now there's three people that can use
I don't
word.
actually get it because I'm not sure what it means. I've heard it before.
I think it's treating atheism as a pathology.
I hope not, because look, it really annoys me when atheists treat religion as a pathology per se.
Right.
And I'm hoping that CMI isn't doing that in the opposite direction, because it's neither of those things are true. Sorry.
So, no, rant away. Please. This is what we're doing tonight. We're ranting.
It actually bugs me that even linguistics is something creationists screw up, because I don't talk about it much on my channel, but it's actually a pretty big interest of mine. I read a lot of stuff on linguistics, right? I'm actually going to be emailing Dr. Josh from Digital Hammurabi. I want to see if I can get him on and just not do anything other than talk about Sumerian grammar, because I want to pick his brain on Sumerian grammar. And it's everyone who has him on, it's always about creationism or the Old Testament. Right. And I'm I don't care.
Let's just talk about grammar. Let's
Sumerian
just
grammar.
Let's just nerd out about grammar. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So they say, look, as long as people understand this fake distinction, then they're going to get vaccines, which is they're obviously doing a poor job of explaining that then, because as we just went through, it took us how long to find a not anti-vax top-level comment in
We
this
had to
thread,
scroll
right?
about halfway through.
About halfway through to find a not anti-vax comment. So, yeah. They're claiming they changed people's minds. Okay, great. You changed people's minds about vaccination.
I hope that's true.
I hope that I do too.
I genuinely do.
More cherry picking. Yes, you can find nonsense that anybody in any field says, as you well know. You can find cranks and quacks in any field. But here's the thing, and again, I'm hammering this point of like, who is teaching people that science is reliable, and who is teaching people that science is basically populated with dishonest or ignorant people, right?
Right.
There's a clear asymmetry here.
And by the way, I don't know if they do, but I can imagine a lot of creationists going with well, I'm not saying they're dishonest. I'm saying they have a different worldview. Like, no, that's not going to cut it, because if the evidence doesn't actually equally apply to both options, just depending on your worldview. Your worldview, in order for the evidence to support creationism, has to be, I don't care what the evidence is unless it fits my preconceived notion. That's not an intellectually honest worldview.
Which is what organizations like AIG, and I can't say for certain if CMI has a statement of faith associated with them, but I know AIG does, where in order to work for them, you have to sign a statement of faith basically saying anything I do is going to support their specific interpretation of the Bible.
CMI does have a statement of faith.
Okay, there you go.
I just found
Which makes sense because they came from the same thing, so that would make sense. It's almost like you could see the homologous structure in things with recent common ancestry.
Wait, hold on. I'm on the right CMI?
Creation Ministries International?
Well, I'm at cmiministries.org, but that doesn't sound right. It's creation.com.
No, it's creation.com.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Creation.com is the one you're looking for.
Well, because the first thing I saw was like they're putting the Apostles and the Nicene Creed in there. I'm like, that doesn't sound like CMI. CMI doesn't give a crap about the creeds.
Let's not worry about CMI and their statement of faith.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to look it up, go ahead. But first, I want to make your head explode with this comment because it will make your head explode.
Okay.
The part that I've highlighted, rather, we have a problem with an atheistic view of history that is masquerading as science. Why should we not expect some evolutionary scientists to act according to their evolutionary view of no objective ethics?
Okay.
It's not a dichotomy between divine command theory and do whatever you want.
Right? It's divine command theory or nothing. There has never been another moral philosophy in the history of the world ever.
There's literally never been any moral or ethical framework that does not depend on the existence of a supernatural entity providing rules.
What do you think the chances are that whoever's writing this, I guess their social media guy, has actually read the Euthyphro dialogue?
I'm going to put it at almost zero. I'm going to say
I've read most of it in classical Greek.
I heard about it in a class on biomedical ethics, and I also learned that it was part of Alice in Wonderland.
Now, don't get me wrong. Reading in Greek required a dictionary and a whole lot of work with the grammar too, and I didn't get through all of it. But I went and I actually when I took my Plato class as one of my electives, I sat there with the English text that we bought and the Greek text open on the internet just in case.
So this is the point in the conversation where I gave up. I was just like, okay, you are clearly not serious, because I'm saying, okay, are you doing this on purpose or do you genuinely have no idea, right? And now this is where it gets, because now they're saying, what about Dawkins? Your hero Dawkins. I just want to say, for the record, Richard Dawkins can take a walk. I've had enough of Richard Dawkins for
so nice and polite
multiple lifetimes. I'm not gonna swear. I try to avoid cussing as much as possible on this channel, so I'm not going to give my full uncensored thoughts on Richard Dawkins. But suffice it to say, I really like The Selfish Gene, and some of his other work is great. I really wish he would shut up, starting about a decade ago. Like I said, I'm not going to swear, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But the fact that the person doing social media for CMI wants to just be like Richard Dawkins, God, I can't stand that guy right now. I just no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's also this thing that creationists like to do. They like to project onto science. The religious tend to have inspired prophets from whom you draw your teachings. Dawkins was never that guy. There is no
No.
that guy in science. We
There's
don't
no, it's
believe things
just,
because Dawkins said it. We believe what Dawkins said in some cases because the evidence backed it up, and we reject
right.
it in other cases because it didn't.
Right. Dawkins' selfish gene framework for understanding evolution at the molecular and population genetics level, I think that works really well. I think that does a good job explaining a lot of observations when it comes to how populations evolve. Dawkins spouting off about trans people on Twitter is an idiot and should be ignored, right? Like, it's not about the person, it's about the validity of the claims. But here we are, just like Dawkins. Like, Dawkins is not a prophet.
Right. Well, it's the same thing when scientists talk about like the Nobel Prize disease, where Nobel Prize winners often go on to do absolutely crazy, insane, nonsense stuff after they win,
It's
and no
really
one
bad.
takes them seriously because in science you don't care what who the person that said it is, except to be like, oh, hey, props, guy. That's you care about the data.
So we're gonna keep going down here. Let's see. I just it just have to point this out.
We're gonna skip over Colton Radog.
We're gonna skip over that mutual acquaintance, but I don't want to out anybody. So we're gonna skip over that.
We don't have to say who is. I just thought his comment was funny.
Oh, it was a funny comment about 5G communist atheist utopia.
Oh, not just. It starts out with mega gay trans cat.
Oh, I missed that part. Sorry. Yeah, it was just like, we don't like Dawkins.
Yeah,
we don't like Dawkins, right? So what I feel motivated to point out here is most people are theists of one sort or another. That percentage of the population is decreasing, but it's still a giant majority. And just like
and most of them accept evolution.
Most of them accept evolution. So I don't know what we're getting at here, but here's the thing. What they're just dodging the question of the culpability, right? It's bringing up these silly, but what about your side? But we denounce the quacks. You're promoting that same mindset, right? And this is the thing here that I don't need to go through this whole comment, but this is my this is we learned it from you, Dad, right? That's what's going on here with this audience. And they're still going.
Oh my goodness!
I didn't even realize they continued after this. I didn't even look at this thread.
By the way, I did find CMI's statement of faith.
Okay, cool. So they do have a statement of faith, but they leave it. They don't ever address the point of what you're saying about atheistic agendas and all that stuff. They never engage with the fact that they're speaking for what they're claiming for an entire field is actually only a subset of that field, and most people in that field are actually theists, and even some very prominent people in the field like Francis Collins or Ken Miller, right? These are very prominent theists in various strains of biology.
There's always been leading members of the biological community who
for
were
decades
theists.
At this point. Yeah,
for centuries.
For all of biology, since it has been a field. Yeah, absolutely. And in the modern world, you can find many examples of that.
There have also been, atheists and agnostics throughout most of that time, but it's almost like biologists aren't really super concerned about your religious views when they're looking at your work. It's almost like that.
This is a perfect comment to end on. Because what CMI is accusing people of here is exactly what their audience is glomming onto, right? What they're saying is, there's always the useful idiots. They're the theists who surrender, and then that's just it's a slippery slope argument, right? And once you give ground a little bit, then you have to give all the ground. This is what their audience is doing. This is the exact same logic their audience is applying to vaccines, because their audience, in fairness, recognizes that if I accept the science of vaccination, then what's stopping me from accepting the science underlying evolutionary theory? And the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Because it is based on the same foundation of knowledge. It's using the same principles. And the way we do epidemiology, the way we track diseases, the way we document how they change, and the way we develop ways of preventing them is all rooted in evolutionary theory. So if you permit vaccinations alone to be good science and try to exclude all the rest of biology, you have started down a slippery slope that you cannot stop, and you must logically accept evolutionary theory. And CMI's audience recognizes that, and what CMI is doing here is turning that around and saying, well, there's always the idiots that think they can be evolutionists and theists, but they're wrong, right? It's this exact logic. They're illustrating the point I'm making. They're teaching their audience to think a certain way, and then their audience is correctly applying that logic to vaccination and the field of biology at large. And here we are. You have an audience full of anti-vaxxers. Thanks, CMI.
Surprise.
Surprise, the leopards are still hungry and they're coming for your face.
Who could have ever predicted this?
Who could have ever, when I voted for the leopards eating people's faces party, I never thought they would eat my face. But here we are. And that's where we're going to end it, everybody. That is the continuing saga of the leopards eating people's faces. CMI trying desperately to convince its anti-vax, anti-science audience to get vaccinated. Dapper, do you have anything interesting coming up on your channel in the next couple of weeks?
So I pulled a bit of a Nickelodeon, who are notorious for airing the first season of their shows out of order so that it's all confusing. And I put out episode 1 and then episode 3 of a series. So episode 2 is coming out tomorrow. So it is, I'm going after Genesis Apologetics again, because Dan Biddle put up on his YouTube channel a talk called something like Destroying the 10 Pillars of Evolution. And what he chose as the 10 pillars is very strange. It includes things like whale evolution as a pillar of evolution. And it's like, that's just kind of a cool example.
That's a cool example, but that's not a pillar. That's
right. I'm thinking, right, like genetics, selection, drift. I was thinking like, right. But the
neutral theory.
No, it's just
Devo.
No, it's like Homo habilis. It's like, okay, Dan, sure, whatever.
Misunderstanding how science works.
Right. But anyway, it was a hilariously bad talk. So I made a 5-part series about it, and part 2 is coming out, except that part 3 already came out. I don't know what I'm doing on Saturday, but I'm thinking I might take a look at Mudflood University, the man who thinks that granite is actually made out of ground meat because it kind of is red sometimes and it's got chunky bits in it. And apparently that's enough for him to conclude it's literally ground up meat from giants.
I don't think that's the case.
Well,
I don't think that's what happens.
I'm hoping I can convince some of our more geologically inclined friends to join me for that.
Oh, that'll make some brains leak out of ears. That sounds fun.
Yeah. If I can't get any of our geology guys on and have their brains explode, I will be disappointed. But that's what's coming up.
And then we're doing a thing in a couple of weeks, aren't we?
Yes, on the 4th at 11 a.m. my time, which is Pacific.
11, 12, 1, 2. That's 2 for me.
2, yeah. There's going to be a debate on my channel with Dr. Dan on one side and Finding Truth, a Muslim apologist, who is, in my opinion, woefully underinformed on everything about science that he talks about, but who seems to be a really personable guy who I get along with well. But
we've also talked briefly, and we get along. So I think that'll be fun.
It'll be a fun time. I think it will also be a frustrating time because it has been every other time he's been on.
I think that is often the case, yes. So I think that'll be the case, but I think we'll have fun. I think that'll be good. I don't have anything come down the pike except for that, and nothing specific. That is, I'm in the middle of my semester, so I'm doing a lot of. We're still remote in my neck of the woods for my classes, so I'm doing a lot of video recording and editing and uploading. But none of it is for this YouTube channel. It's all for class. So I'm doing most of that stuff, and my streams and uploads will be sporadic at best while I push through the semester. But I'll be doing things. I have a few things on the back burner that eventually I will get done, and I'll put out stuff, either heads up of upcoming things, or I'll just drop stuff when I get around to it. So as usual, my schedule will be whatever it is. So Dapper, thank you for joining us for this this stroll through the anti-vaxxers on CMI's Facebook page. I hope that was that was a journey, and I hope you enjoyed taking it with me.
It was a time.
And thank you all for watching. I see we're over 30 people. So if you have not already hit, if you have not already hit like, I see almost 30 likes. So if you haven't already hit like, please do like, share, subscribe. Let's spread the word a little bit. What I do here is take really bad science and take it seriously and show how bad it is. I also want to thank the 6 anti-vaxxers who thumbs downed this video. I appreciate your input. And with that, we're going to call it a night. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Get vaccinated, not just for COVID, but get your flu vaccines, too. I got mine the other day. Get your flu vaccines. Good night, everybody.